You know where she is?
Well, I know where we're looking for her.
Where?
And I think we're probably going to find her over there in the bay.
Oh,
It's a matter of time.
I got nightmares in my head, I fear thoughts build up until I can't feel. My mind fills up into a creature, and it haunts me somewhere much deeper. I got nightmares in my head, I fear.
Hello and welcome to True Crime Rocket Science, the most authentic voice in true crime. In the previous analysis, we looked at Jackie Peterson's influence on her son, and we noted that she felt Scott took after her in temperament. It also seemed clear that mother and son had an unusually close relationship, particularly when juxtaposed to two of her other children, which she gave up for adoption.
He's got my temperament. I don't get angry, I get hurt or sad.
We've also spoken recently, briefly, of post-meditation, and we saw how premeditation and post-meditation hold psychological hands. In this analysis, we're going to try to bring these two threads together, Scott's relationship with his mother and post-meditation, but via a real practical example, and see what that looks like, see what we come up with.
Worth playing for?
Before we get to that, if you haven't subscribed to the channel, please do. Welcome to the many of you who have subscribed. Also, thank you to the many of you who have bought my book over the past couple of days. In August, the most books sold on my Amazon platform was from Blood Seawater, and I see a couple of you have started reading the other books in the same series. So thanks a lot for that. If you haven't read the book and you want to read the book, I'll put a link in the description. If you're finding this analysis worthwhile, please like, share, leave a comment. You can also hit the thanks button, and let's get started.
This afternoon, a badly decomposed body was found near Point Isabel in Richmond, and last night, the body of a male fetus was found just a few miles away, if that far. Gloria Gomez joins us live from the scene with more on this developing story.
In the aftermath to Lacey and Connor's bodies washing ashore on April 13th and 14th, we suddenly see that post-meditation on steroids. When the bodies came up, what it did is it automatically injected a big sense of urgency in the case. That's according to former Modesto police detective John Bueller. Yes, and also urgency in terms of Scott Peterson. It's one thing to talk about post-meditation, but what does it actually look like? Well, it looks like this. Just 3 days after Lacey and Connor washed ashore, Scott was driving this vehicle. But 2 months earlier, he'd bought another vehicle, a white Dodge pickup. And what does he need two new vehicles for? And the way Scott bought the red or maroon Mercedes was a lot like the way he bought the boat, surreptitiously, second-hand, and paying in cash. According to NBC News, quote, Peterson paid $3,600 in cash, this is for the Mercedes, using 36 $100 bills for a maroon 1984 Mercedes-Benz. Who does that? Have you ever done that? Have you ever bought a vehicle for cash using $100 bills? He spent around half that amount, $1,400 cash on a fishing boat on December 9th, about 4 months prior. Now, this is the part that's certainly intriguing. Is there an innocent explanation for this? When the car's owner asked for Peterson's name, he provided his mother's name, Jacqueline Peterson. That's according to Detective Brocchini. He said that that was the name that his parents gave him. It was a kind of a boy named Sue kind of thing, according to Brocchini. According to SF Gate, Griffin, the person who sold him the car, said, "Are you buying the car for your wife?" He said that Peterson said no, that Jacqueline was his name. "I go by Jack," Peterson said, according to Griffin. Then, according to ABC News, inside the vehicle they found rope, knives, 4 cell phones, camping supplies, children's books, and several other items. The guy had 14,000, 15,000 cash, and he had his brother's ID. He also had hiking boots and a shovel and a fishing pole. Now, we've already spoken about Scott paying for a porn channel, the Playboy channel, within days of Lacey's disappearance. Well, in his vehicle, they also found a dozen Viagra pills. And so this prompted Bueller to say, this guy is like James Bond without the secret agent mission. The children's books are also interesting. Was Scott intending to circle back around and try to rekindle things with Amber or perhaps some other mistress? According to NBC News, quote, Bueller also testified that Peterson also had with him The Purpose-Driven Life, What on Earth Am I Here For?, a book his girlfriend Amber Fry had given him, along with a card dated February 16, 2003. Now that's quite amazing that so long after everything, Amber had actually given him a gift with this card in it. And the message in the card read, I can only hope that this will come to an end soon. I wish I could go back in time. I'm praying for you and your family. End quote. So one almost gets a sense that does she regret going public? Did she regret it at this time? Bear in mind, at this point, Lacey's body had not been found. You know, this is mid-February. The remains were only found really a month and a half after that, 2 months later. But one can't help thinking, did Amber have a change of heart at this point? Now, if Scott used his mother's name to buy the vehicle, he also borrowed a brother's driver's license. His father said he did that to get a cheaper green fee at the local golf course. Lee Peterson said that Scott was headed to the links course to play with his family on the day that he was caught. Of course, everything except golf clubs were found in his vehicle. Now think about what we're talking about here. Part of Scott's initial alibi was that he went to play golf. And now on the day that he's caught, the day that he seems to be trying to make a getaway, that's the same explanation. Oh, no, I'm just off to play golf. And his family kind of are backing him up in this. According to SF Gate, Lee Peterson said he told Scott to borrow a fourth brother's driver's license so he could get the cheaper green fee. That's why he had his brother's identification on him when he was arrested that day. Oh, is that why? Are you aware your son had $15,000 in cash on that day? DeStasso asked Peterson's father, suggesting that using a fake identification to save $25 to $40 seemed ridiculous. Well, I was paying, not him, Peterson said, meaning he was paying for Scott to play golf. But Scott Peterson never made it to the links that day. He called one of his brothers to let him know that private investigators were following him, and he told his sibling, the last thing I need is a picture of me playing golf to show up in the media.
Where you at? I'm on Genesee, so I don't think I should come play golf. Oh, gosh. Oh, brother. I think I better skip it, 'cause I don't think I want a picture of me in the press playing golf.
Scott's father, Lee Peterson, said that the family thought the person tailing his son was working for the National Enquirer, the tabloid. In actuality, it was an agent for the California Department of Justice. Police were getting ready to arrest Peterson after the bodies of his wife had been discovered on the Richmond shoreline a few days earlier. Really? His family were completely unaware of that and just wanted to play golf. Think about it. Scott had changed his appearance, he changed his vehicle, and he changed the location he was in. Now he was in San Diego. And it also accumulated all of these items, clothing, equipment, cards of various kinds. I mean, what was Scott doing with so many credit cards that didn't belong to him? Who did they belong to? And so some of these cards, one driver's license was his, the other belonged to his mother, Jackie. Did Jackie know that Scott had her driver's license? It's a little bit like, or it feels a little bit like Caitlin Armstrong, who ended up with her sister's passport. There were 6 credit cards, including one in his half-sister's name. According to SF Gate, quote, DeStasso and Harris have suggested that Peterson had purchased the car and packed it with supplies to head south of the Mexico border if he needed to make a hasty getaway. We also know that when Scott was dating Lacey, he often took her to Mexico, so he knew Mexico, just like I think Caitlin Armstrong knew some of the countries that she went to, and she knew yoga. It's all using sort of something that is familiar, psychologically familiar to you. They also said, the prosecutor said that he changed his appearance so he wouldn't be recognizable. But Garagos, his defense lawyer, laughed at the notion during the trial, saying, what kind of person who wants to go unnoticed buys a red Mercedes? He and his partner, Pat Harris, tried to show through cross-examination that Peterson was trying to evade not the police but the media, which had been relentlessly hounding him. Well, what about the media and the police? And even if it's true, if you say, okay, he was trying to evade the media, right? What kind of person who is simply trying to evade the media needs 4 different cell phones? And this is happening right when his wife and child have been found and identified. And also, why is he so close to Mexico at this particular time? Instead of playing golf, why hasn't he gone from San Diego north to San Francisco to find out, to speak to the authorities? Why is he so far from home? What is interesting, and this is where one's got to be careful not to jump to conclusions and to think critically. The knife found in the vehicle belonged to the seller, Griffith, not Scott, but the firearm was Scott's. Another firearm, at least I think it was another firearm, had been confiscated by the detective who found a loaded Lama .22 caliber semi-automatic in the glove compartment on Christmas Eve. There is quite a big narrative surrounding firearms as well. I think Scott also had a shotgun, and he had other weapons that were related to hunting, including, I think, bird hunting and possibly duck hunting. The detective said it did not appear that this Lama .22 caliber had been used recently. But then there's also this, snorkeling gear and binoculars. According to SF Gate, Burkini and Buller said they knew Scott Peterson was in San Diego at the time because they'd put a tracker on his car and were afraid he was going to disappear across the border. Now think about how Scott disappeared in terms of amber at the time where he knew that he was going to need to, in a way, face the music regarding Lacey. He said, well, I'm in Paris. And so it is quite interesting that you almost have Scott anticipating the discovery of the bodies, and what is he going to do then? Well, he seems to be prepared. And of course, a very interesting question arises, and the question is this: when did Scott head to San Diego? Because he'd been living with his half-sister, Ann Bird, at their home overlooking San Francisco Bay at the time that a lot of the investigation was taking place. What prompted him to leave? Well, as it turns out, that answer is in her book on page 125. I'm not going to take it further than that. Thank you for listening, and I'll see you guys next time.